Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever time zone you're living in, it's time for Sumud. All about humanity, so this right here for everyone. Uplift, amplify, empower everyone. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever time zone you're living in, it's time for Sumud.
On this episode of the Sumud podcast, we uplift, empower, and amplify Palestinian American space engineer Loay Elbasyouni. Loay helped design Ingenuity, a lightweight robotic helicopter for NASA's Mars Perseverance rover mission. The aircraft made history by capturing stunning views of the red planet's rocky terrain. And rocky terrain is a good way to describe Loay's journey. Raised in Gaza, Palestine, and educated in UNRWA schools, he overcame countless obstacles to follow his passion for engineering and space exploration. His remarkable journey from Gaza to NASA is a powerful symbol of hope and inspiration for all Palestinians. If you haven't already, please subscribe to this podcast on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen. Follow us on Instagram and X or Threads with the handle at Sumud Pod, or Facebook and LinkedIn at Sumud Podcast. Loay, brother, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Am I saying this wrong? Are you officially the first Palestinian space engineer?
Oh no, I mean I don't want to take that credit, but there's a guy named Nimmer. I forgot his last name, but he actually worked on the Apollo mission. He's actually from Jenin. So I mean that was probably in the 60s, 70s, But yeah, I mean I guess maybe it's different. It's the significant of my accomplishment actually is the first human, not even the first Palestinian, to work on something that fly on another planet. So I mean that would make me the first Palestinian since I'm for the first team that ever fly a craft on another planet, which is Mars.
Okay, yeah, that's amazing. So talk to me a little bit about your early life and upbringing, because I believe you were born in Germany, but then you ended up moving back to Gaza, correct?
Yes. So when I was, pretty young, about 6 years old, a little bit less, but we moved back to Gaza. My dad was, studying medicine in Germany, and we got back to Gaza, and somehow we got stuck there to some political reason. My dad was politically active back in the 80s. We could not really go back to Germany, so we lived in Gaza, and I studied in UNRWA schools. K1 to K12, K1 to K9, and then in Gaza public schools, my high school, post-secondary school.
So your dad is a surgeon, which means you were supposed to be a doctor as well. That's my bet.
Yes, that was my dad's dream. It's he kind of wanted us to all study medicine, and he ran his surgical clinic that he had in Gaza, which is it's just he wanted all of us to work for him. I mean, that was kind of part of his motivation to us all to study medicine. But he actually trained me to be a doctor since I was maybe 12. So I actually been into a lot of surgical operation and witnessing stuff, and he always taught us things. So I mean, I know a lot about medicine.
That's phenomenal. And you went to an UNRWA school, as you mentioned. Can you describe that experience? Because I have to imagine, even though you were about 6, that's still a bit of a culture shock.
Oh yeah, I mean, I can tell you the cultural shock. It's like I constantly live in cultural shock. But I mean, I remember like literally my first week in school. I think the first day. My brother was already in the second grade, but so like we walk into school, and I'm like completely shocked. I'm in Beit Hanun, the streets are totally different. I mean, I grew up in West Germany, as a child, so I mean, Gaza was, a little bit back then, like really neglected. I mean, it was like administered by Israeli civil administration, but there was no benefits or like, so that by itself was a shock. But I remember the first time I was going to school, and all the kids from school were like waiting. The school is overpopulated, so they had to divide the school to morning session and afternoon session. And I was in the afternoon session, So as we waiting outside of the school, all these kids started running into this house, like even the older people. And I was like, what the hell is going on? It's like a lion got cut loose from the zoo. So like all the kids started running into this house. I still remember the door, like green, with brown surrounding, and I just, I was like, I shouldn't be on the street. This lion might just eat me. I mean, I was like 6-year-old kid, and I just decided, I'm super curious, and I always been curious. I decided to sneak my head through the door. Everybody started shouting at me, close the door, close the door. And I noticed like an Israeli military jeep, like with 2 soldiers, one on the machine gun and one was driving with the covers taken off back, and I was like, why people running away from the military? Shouldn't the military protect them?
Wow.
I'm so naive,
That's innocence, though. That's pure innocence. Yeah.
Yeah.
And did one of your friends actually get shot in the back on that day as well, or was that a different time? I mean, there could have been many.
Oh no, that was like, I don't know what you read about that, but like, actually in my middle school, I think I was in the 7th grade. That's a different UNRWA school. I mean, I remember, the school was divided in half because the half closer to the street, like the playground, we were not allowed to playground because Israeli military banned we us being on the playground. And that day is like, everybody started running, and I was like, I was literally, I started running after everybody, because you don't know what's going on, it's like, it's a big chaos, and I'm running and I'm literally jumping this like 3-meter long fence about 10 feet, it's like climbing up, and I was like, and then I realized all the kids actually going to throw stones at the jeeps, in the military, and and then like they start shooting, I mean, they start shooting in the school. I just like turned back, climbed the fence again. I'm just running away. I don't think I was good at throwing rocks, but so I ran away. But they're like literally start shooting, and I think that 3 people got shot. And yeah, one of the guys in my class. I mean, he's actually 1 grade older than me. Trying to remember, his name, but I mean, he got shot in the back, which is, I mean, he got paralyzed. But I mean, it's just just really tragic. I mean, just. But looking, back, I'm just kind of feeling like, that wasn't even a bad thing, comparing to the level of violence like the Palestinian civilians see now. I mean, especially in Beit Hanun, I mean, it's completely demolished.
Yeah. Was that the very moment you realize, you know what, I'm not in a safe area. I have to sort of grow up a little faster and be more careful?
No, I don't know if I would say that, I mean, no, I mean, I don't know. It's like, Palestinian, you're from Gaza, you don't really scare us. But no, I mean, so, I mean, it's just like making me realize, it's like, I mean, you hear a lot, it's like, people teach us, our parents, our families teach us hate, blah, blah, blah. It's not, I mean, kids, we know what happened. We can say what's right from wrong. We don't really need anybody to tell us. I mean, my dad probably beat me up if he even know at the time. Or like, I tried to throw rocks or even participate in politics. I mean, he was like, very against. He was always scared for us. He like did not want us to be part of anything. Like resistance or anything. I mean, he just, I mean, he was, I mean, even though he had his own political past, and he'd been in prison himself, like Israeli prison, but he just did not want us to be, like part of anything, so like, I mean, as a kid growing up, it was so different. I mean, I even grew, I used to go to Tel Aviv, like we used to go to Tel Aviv almost every Friday. Like my dad used to buy a lot of surgical equipment, so, I had a lot of interaction with Israelis, and I mean, it's normal. I mean, like, I mean, there's like 2 different things, when you look at a soldier with the military and when you look at somebody like, like when we used to go by and actually play with the Israeli kids, I remember even going to the beach in Ashkelon, I mean in Majdal, and I mean it's different, I mean humans,
Yeah. And can you dispel the notion that UNRWA schools sort of teach hate or teach, let's use the word terror, I guess?
It's ridiculous. I mean, honestly, so schools are always, I mean, there's multiple occasions, like, I mean, our middle school, I mean, the year before me was closed for half of the year, uh, you know, uh, just because one kid threw a rock out of the school. I mean, the thing is just like my parents, I mean, all the teacher were like against, even allowing kids to go through at school because they kind of look at it from a bigger picture than a child just trying to throw a kid. And sometimes, the bad kids who didn't like the school,
Yeah.
it's like, what, I want the school to close. They go like try to throw a rock, right? But But no, that, the school, everybody's apolitical. Even though, like, maybe, everybody have their own right to political affiliation, political party does not mean they are part of, political, but nobody expressed that. The student themselves. On the other hand, student organize. There's student youth movements, things like that, but that have nothing to do with the school. The school itself prohibit the activity. I know a lot of kids get suspended for throwing rocks from school, or like try to, like, start a fire, like lighting, because they used to light up the tire. So this is how you actually, bring in the soldier at the time. Like, you bring in a bunch of car tires, you light them up on fire. There's a lot of smoke, and then the military come, and then, like, they throw rocks at them, because that's how it was. It was actually like Tom and Jerry. It's like a game.
Yeah.
For a lot of kids. It had nothing to do. Nobody was really. Sometimes, rarely is motivated with. Nobody's. It never was organized. Honestly, even though some people, like kids, will have, like, a sentimental to one political party or not. And I remember at that time, and especially in Beit Hanun, the biggest political party was the Palestinian People Front. Which is like a lot of people were actually atheists more than anything, and communists. But they just, like, that was like the big thing at the time, or the Nationalist Party, Fatah, was like, they were like the major two at the time. Even Hamas at that time was like, non-existent. I remember when they first started, actually, they weren't even extremely non-violent, really. So they didn't even believe in throwing rocks or anything. They just used to preach religion more than anything.
Yeah. And when did you know you were ahead of everybody, or I don't want to say smarter than everybody, because rumor has it that you built some sort of mechanism to be able to watch TV using aluminum foil and some parts in the kitchen, I guess.
Yeah, honestly, I never was top of my class. I was almost like third, fourth, fifth. I'm not very competitive, but I love to apply the knowledge I know. So I think I only got the first of my class only in the seventh grade. I think back then my dad gave me a watch, as a reward, because a really nice watch. But no, I'm very hands on, so I always, like, love to fix things, love to make things. Like, even like carpentry, but we always had problem with the TV, with the antennas, and so a lot of time the antenna didn't work. So I had to always, like, I really wanted to watch, TV or something. And I was like, always playing with the antennas and start exploring more with the antennas. I got my master degree in antennas design, but so I always, like, I was like experimenting with different things. I even made an antenna one time out of a water cup, so, just actually by using the water itself, which is, but just but I always, like, our TV was broken for a while, like months, because my dad wasn't allowed to work, so we were already broke for a long time. But and so, like, yeah, I fixed the TV using paper foil, like aluminum foil, like actually out of a cigarette pack. Wasn't even
Really? Wow.
Yeah, because like the cigarette used to be wrapped by aluminum foil.
Yeah.
I don't know if they still do it to this day. My grandfather used to smoke.
You're going to age us with that comment, so we're trying to act like we're still young here, okay?
I am young. I don't know how old you are, but
we'll talk about it after. But do you remember MacGyver at least?
Oh yeah, I used to actually my favorite show, MacGyver and the A-Team.
There you go. So we're about the same age.
So that's actually I was trying to get that channel, like, so it used to call Middle East, broadcast out of Lebanon, and so I used the pan to actually, like, try to get this channel, because it didn't have a special channel, and sometimes it had, like, R-rated movies, so like, hey, I want to watch these R-rated movies.
Hey, you got creative, and you also did you hack a walkie-talkie or something to that effect so you can listen to the Israeli military talking?
No, I don't know what's intentional, but so I literally had the walkie-talkie and one part stopped working. So I was like, decided to tear it up to see what's inside. And I remember there was this coil, copper coil. And I was like, and I saw with wireless turning it on. It's like I'm started, like, playing with it, and I noticed it actually started picking up stuff. So I kept tuning it until I actually started picking up the Israeli radio station, like literally the military channel, So I didn't have a bottom or anything, so I had to, like, modify it.
So you're officially the Palestinian Iron Man based on that.
I don't know about that. Maybe MacGyver at the time.
Fair enough.
That was my favorite show.
And you were pretty eclectic as far as your hobbies and what you like to learn. If I understood correctly, you loved art. You used to actually make pots, I
Mhm.
believe, for dessert pans, for various Palestinian desserts. Is that correct?
Yeah. So the kanafe pans, I used to use them, and actually I used to pour, like a make a mold out of them, because actually I was hand sculpting these like watches, and so I buy like a clock motor, like I make a big clock, and then I was like, you know what, I really want to make this a business, and so I literally I collected all from my uncles, all the kanafe pans, and I make a molds in them, like hand make molds, and I kept pouring all these watches, like clocks. I made like hundreds of clocks. I even had a showroom in the middle of Gaza City to sell these clocks, but I don't know, people not into art there, so it didn't really work. But I think that's probably one of my first failed business ventures. But I mean, I give a lot of them gifts. A lot of them, probably even gift Yasser Arafat's wife one.
Really? Wow.
I don't know if she still has it, but
We can ask her. You said something about kanafa, just to settle a debate with many of my friends really quick, if you don't mind. Is it kanafa or is it chinafa? Just what's your
no, man. I don't know. You sound like you're from somewhere in the West Bank, but it's knafa. It's like with the ka.
There you
I
go.
know some people pronounce it cha, but that's just a dialect. When you write it knafa.
Yeah, of course. I agree with you. For the, for
The
the,
Lebanese might get upset because the Lebanese call it knafa too. So
for the record, I agree with you. It's kanafa. And what was your last memory as a young child in Gaza before you left? Or maybe by the time you were 17 or 18?
I mean, when I left, it was different because that was like during the Oslo, peace accord. So things were changing. I mean, I remember, my cousin actually died the last day the Israeli military left out of Gaza. There was like some kind of, shooting, and, my cousin ended up get killed. But, but then 2 years later, I left, so, that was, different. I left in 98, so 95, 98. Like probably the last Israeli military were in Gaza at the time, at least in the city. They still, like, if you had to go to the south of Gaza, you had to cross through a lot of the settlement areas, and there was like a lot of Israelis. But so but I do actually remember, like, there's like, back then it's like, some problem happens, and Israeli kind of encouraged Beit Hanun. I remember, like, it's like, this peace that didn't last months, or a year. A so-called peace, but it was different. I remember a lot of, like, construction, a lot of build up, Gaza, a lot of things change,
Yeah.
but they were changing in the positive way. When I visited in 2000. I spent the whole time on the beach. I love the beach. My last experience in Gaza is like literally summer camp. Yeah, I spent like the whole summer on the beach, swimming. Just like, swimming and, training, and so it was kind of. I have a lot of fond memories in Gaza. We used to have a lot of parties. A lot of grill outs. Barbecues, and I had a lot of. I'd say some of the best times of my life is actually in Gaza.
Can you describe that summer camp experience? Because, as you know, there is this notion again that, oh, we're in these schools or these camps learning to hate people. What was that experience of a summer camp, generally speaking, for you?
Like, actually, the summer camp were run by the Palestinian Authority, so or like a lot of the peace movements. So I used to be a member of the Palestinian Youth Movement for Peace, where actually, they actually did have a lot of encouragement to actually communicate with Israelis at the time, and people like, we gotta live together. So actually, that's what these camps about, but we had people from international people come in. I remember we had like international camp, like people from Germany, France, came actually. Like, I remember the camp, like a lot of people from Qatar came, at the time. But so I don't know. There is no such thing as somebody teaching hate. I mean, not the culture. Not the religion. Sometimes I kind of actually, I don't know, kind of make me like think as like, I wish we are like our enemy. Because they're full of hate. We just don't have it. I mean, I think even the people who are religious, they are very forgiving. I mean, because that's what the religion really teach. It's like teach forgiving. Even I mean, it's like. I mean, that's a question sometimes, like what will happen after liberation of Palestine? I mean, a lot of people like, you cannot really do anything. I mean, you could look at the examples from the past, from like, the time of the Crusades and how forgiving they were to the brutal Crusaders who came to Palestine and, they were allowed, full, like, and they were pardoned, I mean, history speak, I mean, about there's no such thing as hate. Our culture does not teach hate, despite what the Crusaders have done to the Palestinians at the time. The Palestinian Arab population, the Muslim population, the Jewish population in Palestine. But at the end, they were all given quarters to leave or to live among the people. As long as you know, they don't really, they don't really commit. I mean, But so I mean, yeah, I really hate when people like talk about these notions, or especially like attacking UNRWA, for just like just because like some person like taught at UNRWA school is have personally a political affiliation. I mean, you work in a company or university right now, right? And you do have a political affiliation, but they are not associated for the place you work in.
Right.
I mean, that's normal.
Yeah, right. So when you finally left Gaza, you, I think, won a scholarship to a university in the U.S. Is that accurate?
No, I mean, no. So I mean, I came on my own initially. Uh, I did not, I mean, I came on my own. I mean, I mean, I had some money saved because I used to work. I had a photography business, and I used to actually sell fruits before I came, and
Okay, so
so
wait a
that's
minute.
how I really.
I got to stop you there. What don't you do? What can't you do?
I don't know. I mean, that's the question. People's like, "Oh, you're multi-talented." I don't know.
Yeah.
I haven't figured that. I don't. I think anybody can do anything. I mean, I totally believe that, and I mean, I choose not to do things because sometimes I think it's not worth my time. But I mean, I fix my own cars if I want to. I mean, I fixed my cars many times before. But I mean, I don't know. I just love doing things. I love to challenge myself. Always learn something new.
Yeah.
I mean, so I'm learning Spanish right now, so so something new.
Yeah. That's very cool. When you got to the U.S., it wasn't necessarily easy for you, if I understood correctly. I know you went.
No.
One thing that was
Mhm.
confusing for me was there were a lot of schools that you were affiliated with. So I think Nebraska, Penn, then Kentucky, then Louisville, or something. Or is that the wrong order?
No, I mean, so actually my first, so like, just in case the immigration is listening, my first university that I got the visa on was Bellevue University in Nebraska. Actually, I never went there. But, so, then actually, I was in New York for a month, New Jersey, New York area. And I couldn't really work because I really needed, my school. Actually, I got by the time I got the visa was February, so I couldn't go to school. So I had to wait until the following semester. So I just wanted to find some work, because I wanted to save some money, because I had like $4,000 with me, $4,000, like $5,000, something like that, which is I saved from like my like literally selling the fruits, apricots, and doing photography business, and then my dad gave me some money. So I was like, I need to save some money. So I was like, so I actually moved to Kentucky. I knew some people there, and I went to Kentucky and I studied there for. I mean, I didn't study. I worked like from February, and then like in March, like a university actually I applied for in Gaza that actually honored an in-resident tuition to people from Palestine, Untitled University of Pennsylvania. Actually went there in September and I studied there for one semester. But it was a very small town, and I ran out. I spent all the money I had and the money my dad gave me. Because I was paying like half of the tuition, and I had to pay for living expenses. So I had to drop out. Then I moved back to Kentucky because I know some people I could work there. I used to work in Subways making sandwiches, and then actually I went back. I started delivering pizza, and I signed up for University of Kentucky, and I studied there for a couple years. But then I had to drop out again. I was like actually delivering pizza. Like I used to work for like Pizza Hut, Pizza Hut, and two other local pizza chains, and I couldn't save enough money. I had like a lot of money in the credit cards, and I was like, I dropped out and 9/11 happened, and University of Kentucky was kind of like give me a hard time to go back. They actually asked me to go back to Gaza, and at that time, Gaza was like, like actually that was the second Intifada, so I couldn't go. So I actually applied to University of Louisville, and University of Louisville accepted me, and I studied, got my bachelor in 2 years, and my master then after in 8 months. So I was like, I couldn't guarantee time, so I had to take as many classes as I could in the shortest time amount possible, and I got my bachelor and master in like 3 years.
And that university, that experience was pivotal for you in your career, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, I think I
yeah.
read that your professors and mentors were really supportive of you and even helped you pay your master's degree, I believe it was.
No, so I mean, for my master, I got a full right. I mean, I was a graduate assistant, so I was like, my tuition was completely paid, and I was getting a stipend monthly, including healthcare for the first time in the whole time I was there. But like for my undergrad, I mean, I had so when I saved money in that year I was working. I dropped out of school. I saved like some money, and I got in an accident, so I got some money from the insurance when I was delivering pizza, and so I was able to like go the first year without working. So I got a really good grade. I got a scholarship that paid for like a tuition of 1 semester. Then I got a work study grant. I ended up publishing a paper with one of the professors. But then in my last semester, the first 2 years, like before I finished my master, I didn't have money to pay. I was like short. I never even bought books, because I always like borrowed my friends' books, and so I like my professor, like I was short like $350, and Dr. Ibrahim Imam, he like wrote the check to the university and paid for it. I mean, he paid for many things, I mean, he paid for my dinners many nights, so and but after that, like the professor like liked me a lot. They helped me to get the graduate assistantship, and I worked for the university. I was doing actually computer networking. I was doing you know, uh, the computer networking for the university for the computer engineering department. And I studied actually my master. I finished my master, then I started actually a second master in computer science. Uh, but after that, I got a job. So,
Yeah.
and
But you've always been a hard worker. You were averaging something to the effect of 80 to 105 hours a week or something to that extent.
yeah, I mean, my average week was 90 hours. I think my max week was like 105 hours. I mean, that's like my first 6 months, probably from February 1998 until like September. And I was like working a lot. I mean, after like with the year I dropped out, I used to like literally work like an 11 to like 4 job, and then like 5 to like in like 10, and then like midnight until 4 a.m. delivering pizza, to save money for the following year. So I mean, I did work a lot of different things. I mean, I even worked for a few weeks, like in a GE lamp factory, like building lamps on. That was like sketchy job, But I did a lot of things, man. I mean, I worked at Olive Garden surveying. I worked, Kentucky Center of the Arts surveying. Done it all. Whatever I had to do, I did it. I mean, honestly, I didn't do any bad jobs, but you know,
You're a great role model for all of us, obviously, with your work ethic. So that's amazing. And you talk to me about your experience after 9/11, because I believe when you were delivering pizza at one point after 9/11, a
Mhm.
group of men jumped you or attacked you.
Yeah. So I was in the University of Kentucky delivering pizza to the dorms, and I got some guys stole my pizza, so the pizza sign of the car, and so I was trying to chase them, and then they start cursing me like excuse my language, but I was like, motherfucker Arab, go home, blah blah blah, and they like start pushing me. I was trying to take the pizza sign, they shoved me, and I twisted my ankle. I had to like I saw a police car. I ran to the police car. The policeman actually was really nice. He's like, get in the car. I got in the car with him, and he's like, we tried to find them, but we couldn't find them. So it was quite kind of crazy, but then just like I think some TV station or the newspaper read it, the Herald, Lexington Herald leader, and they came interview me the next day. I had a bunch of interviews, and so I mean it was kind of crazy. But actually, the dean after the dean of electrical engineering school called me, tried to help me out, give me a job. So I worked at the University of Kentucky in the computer department. I was helping building the network for the dean's office. So, but so I mean, in some way it was a bad experience, but I mean, some ways was actually, in a way, like to see people actually care about you was actually really rewarding in some ways.
Yeah, no, for sure. And what was your mental state, if you will, post 9/11? Obviously, you came from Gaza, you saw war, you saw a lot of bad things. You came here thinking maybe there'd be more peace and prosperity, but then obviously post 9/11, there was a lot of hate towards Arabs and Muslims.
Yeah, I mean the timing analysis is not only 9/11 because I mean honestly that I mean that was one thing, but at the same time was really hard in Gaza at the time. That's when the second Intifada happened. So um, so I mean like like and we lost a lot of land. So I mean that's so I mean a lot of our groves were bulldozed in 2001. So it's the same period. So not only like 9/11 happened. I mean like 2 months before 9/11, my economical situation, my dad's economical situation was bad. So my dad like could not help me with anything, which made it for me so much harder. So that's why I had to drop out of school. Then 9/11 happened, and so it's like but then like in 9/11, I mean it's I mean then it's like the war in Iraq started, right? So I mean there was like so much I mean I don't know, I mean like I mean it was so obvious, was uncalled for, was no relationship. So I was like I mean I don't know, that's just made me extremely uncomfortable. And I mean even like the people, like dealing with the people, everybody just always look at you. I mean honestly I did not like to be, I mean at that point I didn't even like to be in Lexington. I mean it's the smallest city in the US, because like people always looking at you just because the way you look. I mean so I mean that wasn't really comfortable. I mean it was a little bit better when I went to Louisville, but still
Yeah.
just
And you eventually moved to the LA area because it reminded you of Gaza?
no. So I mean I was I mean it's a long story. So I mean in 2007 I was traveling around the US and I visited California. I realized how much it resembled Palestine. And I was like, I would love to get there. So, but at the time, I was like very focused into working on electric cars and wind energy. And I was like, I didn't really want to work in any defense company or military companies, just because you never know. I mean, who's gonna use these weapons? I mean, now or in the future. I mean, you never know what's gonna happen, right? So I was like, I didn't want to be part that anything that destroy Earth. So I was like really focusing on electric cars. So I was in Boston for a while, working at a startup electric car company that actually ended up going out of business. I moved to California, like with another electric car company, which I kind of thought was gonna go out of business, but I was like, it's an opportunity for me to move to California. I mean, I love the weather. I love orange groves. It just reminded me of where I grew up. I mean, I mean, I mean, 2000. I mean, Gaza didn't look anything like California, because I mean most of our orange grove were bulldozed, and then there was this citrus disease that, so it was kind of really hard to grow or like orange trees. I mean a lot of the trees I planted, most of them were bulldozed back in 2001. And so I mean yeah, so I was like one day maybe I'll buy an orange grove and bring my parents here, and so my dad can live in the grove like he always dreamed. But just time pass.
Well, inshallah, we can still make it happen one way or another at some point. So, if you could dumb this down for all of us who are not as smart as you here, what is it exactly that you did when it came to Mars and that whole mission? What is your role? If you could kind of break that down for us.
Yeah, so I mean I was from the literally the start on the project. Like literally we just wrote the first paper, like 5 page, 3 page, white paper at the time, on like is it the feasibility of really flying on Mars? Could we really fly on Mars? And so I mean we had to do a lot of studies. I mean my responsibility, I was the lead electrical engineer at the time. So so my response was like to estimate how much, like the weight, like how can we make it, how big can the motor controller be, work with the motors, like all the other servos, and just like be part of the team, from the beginning, just like theoretically, so once we proved the theoretical we could do it, I was responsible, and I actually designed like the motor controllers, the servo controllers, the electric. I was the lead electrical system, like picking wires, picking like deciding and everything is like how can we make this thing happen. At the same time, it's like it was extremely challenging because a lot of people doubted that it was possible. Because I think some people to this day doubt. Like you probably like can find conspiracy video that we made it up, but but so I was like I was like in charge of all the electrical system, and so I worked on the design of the motor. How can we make the motor so much lightweight? Like where should we place the motor inside of the box? Because it's really cold on Mars, you have to consider everything. So how does what make the most like scientific sense? So in a way, think about it. Design the motor. Like the propulsion system. That's what make it actually fly. And then I used to work a lot with the other teams on NASA, and I help them on like how to actually control the motors, like from the software perspective, the algorithm. I believe it or not, I had the helicopter in my house a few days. So
Now, I wish I would have known you
couple
back
da-
then.
yeah, a couple of times, I was like, I had to try because I was going like, working like, in the company, like actually one location. So the next day I had to go to Pasadena. So I was like, hey, could you take the helicopter with you? So I was like, I was like, man, should I leave it in the car? What if somebody break the car? We only have one model, so I would just take it to the house. So I had the helicopter literally sleeping with me in my apartment.
Did you play with the helicopter at all in the house?
I was with it all day at work. Why would I? I was like, just like go surfing and wake up the next morning, go, just go to work at NASA, and we're doing a lot. We had a lot of problems back then. Because we made it so small, so it was like everything was interfering with everything, and the motor was not working, and so I had to like we were sitting there for a few days, trying to figure out how to make it work. The incredible thing, I worked on so many engineering things in my life, but the thing is with the helicopter, it was extremely low budget in the beginning, so we didn't really get to try things so many times. So we literally only built 3 helicopters total. So that was like everything was done on one helicopter. So if there's any engineer listening, they probably know that there are not that many projects that where you like literally, I could say like my first revision design is actually on Mars. It's like I did like the revision 0 and revision 1 is on Mars. It's like I just had tiny change. So it was a really different type of project for me. And because we had to prove we are like at a constant fight with the leadership of NASA and the leadership of the project, because a lot of people did not believe in it. So it's like we used to be like almost like it's almost like the orphan child. So it was very challenging at different levels. Sometimes the budget was frozen for a while, and then like we'd have to like pick up and work really quick. So like spend a lot of hours like working on it while I'm working on other projects. So it's like it wasn't the only thing I'm working on. I probably worked on 6-7 other drones at the same time. And no, I'm not gonna tell you which one I are, but
But did you know how important the work that you were doing at that moment? Did you ever reflect, for example, wow, I came from Gaza, I came all this way, I worked at Subway for 90 hours, and now I'm doing this. I mean, how did that feel?
Honestly, like I always envisioned, like just like reading about the Wright brothers. I think a lot of people talk about this guy who worked from Gaza to NASA, but to me, it's like like how now it's what it's NASA, but it's like I always envisioned like just like when I'm reading a book about the Wright brothers, like in a history book, I was like one day, I'll be in a book, this kid from Gaza who literally worked in a helicopter that's flew on Mars for the first time. Because and but so I always saw it, for a long time on the project. I didn't think we were not approved to go to Mars. We didn't. The project didn't get approved to go to Mars until 2019, which is like the design was already done, because we had to prove to the leadership that actually it's not going to add a risk onto the rover. So I mean, so I didn't know it was going. So like to me, just the fact, like, I was like, if it only went, like, not even like fly, I was like, I have hardware I designed, I touched with my hands on Mars. It's like, it's still like, I mean, it's like, it's kind of weird that it's still like, it's not even like, sometimes like, is it really real? You know what I mean? It's like, it's just, and it's like if I go back to like me as a kid, I was like, you're gonna have something on Mars. I mean, as a kid, I always wanted to fly the space shuttle. I thought I had to be a pilot, so I actually signed up for pilot school when I was in college. I applied, but they wouldn't accept me because I'm not a U.S. citizen at the time. But but so I don't know. I mean, to this day, just it's kind of really hard to. I mean, I don't even know how to explain this. I mean, you know uh, I mean, I knew that I could do anything I want. I am actually still disappointed in myself because my dreams are much greater than what I accomplished. And I think anybody could. I mean, any kid in Gaza today, in the middle of the war, if they survive, I think they can do much greater things than I did.
So you mentioned you had your hands on the helicopter before it went. Just don't forget, it was also sleeping next to you in your bed at home too, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, that was a different model, but yeah, I mean, it was like, that was the EM1, but so yeah, I mean, the FM, yeah, I mean, it's like, I mean, I'm not gonna tell you. My name was written on it actually, but so, I
Really?
wrote other things too. But I'm like,
You're not going to give
I
us
had
an
it like in the book.
exclusive of what was written on there?
Nah, let them wonder. One day the aliens will find out.
I hope it says "Free Palestine" so much.
No
Great,
comment.
great. So I got to ask you: do you realize how important you are to our community, and how much hope you've given generations to come just with everything you've done?
Honestly, I don't know. Sometimes I question it, but especially after what's happening right now, it's just I mean, before the war, you a lot of kids, like, you ask them what they want to do. They probably, some of them, if they know me, they like, they like to be something like me. But I don't know what they say today. After all what they witnessed in the last 9 months, it's just I don't know. It's like, I don't know. It's like a lot of them don't even have hope to live. I mean, just like, just to survive. Um, I mean, I do have a lot of people, not only in Palestine, not only in Gaza. I mean, I do have kids in Egypt, Indonesia, Bangladesh, like, I mean, I give talks in many countries, many in Turkey, I mean, probably they have, more people in Turkey than anywhere else, but, I mean, Indonesia, I mean, Malaysia, I mean, India, I mean, it's just, I think, and that's like part of it is just not even the helicopter, just like, being a refugee who had like almost no hope. I mean, being a dropout, so I mean, it's like, there's many points, it's like, I just don't give up, I mean, like, my friends who know me the best, they just know I would never give up, and I would just do whatever I wanted to do. And I think a lot of people should do the same. If you believe in yourself, you can succeed.
I mean, it's Sumud, right? At the end of the day, for you, your steadfastness and your perseverance through all of this.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, I don't know, it's just I mean, it's just like, sometimes, like, my story is similar to the helicopter story, because the helicopter was a fight. I mean, to have to fight against everybody who didn't believe in it. I mean, I had to fight against everybody who didn't believe in me. Or like didn't want to give me an opportunity. You hear people, and they really break me, is like when you see all this, like, uh, pro-Israel. I mean, I want to say Zionist. Like, on tweeting, is like, what is Gaza have ever invented? You ever hear that? You ever seen these posts?
I
You know
do.
what Gaza ever invented?
Yeah.
But you know something, like, it's a word Gaza is a word in every language. Do you know what actually Gaza mean? It's like, it's actually in every language. In Spanish, it's like Gaza, Gasa. It actually, it's a band-aid. In French, it's Gaza. In English, it's Gaza. It's like Gasa, because a band-aid was invented in Gaza. And in every language, today, The word for band-aid is actually a derivation from the word Gaza, because that's where the band-aid actually was invented,
Okay, great.
to treat every single wound
Now,
in the world.
see what you did there? Now APAC is going to ban the word Band-Aid or Raz or whatever it is. See what you did?
Hey,
Yeah. So you have a famous quote, I think that's out there, that it's easier to go to space than it is to go to Gaza. And maybe I take it a step further. Maybe it's easier to live in space than it is to live in Gaza at this point.
yeah, I mean, making Gaza so uninhabitable today, but yeah, I mean, so it's easier to calculate math, do physics, than actually dealing with people at politics and believes in some false, or I mean, some made up stories. I mean, that's to me like science versus opinion. And so I mean that's really what that comes back to. It's like to go to Mars. I mean, yes, it is very difficult, it's very costly, but we can like with science and physics we can know, predict, and know what would it take us to go there. And it is definitely more feasible than actually entering Gaza right now. I mean, you have to deal with so many governments, opinions of people, and putting your life at an uncalculated risk because you don't even know what's your risk chance of survival. I could calculate the chance of survival by going to Mars, but you cannot sort of like calculate the survival chance of you going to Gaza because you have random killing of people. Just anybody could be killed any minute. I mean, it's just really hard to say.
Yeah. And I think that's a good segue to your parents when they were they got trapped, I think, after October 7th, if that's correct. And
Hmm.
I want to sort of ask first, you have to think at some point you've seen it all before October 7th for yourself. You've seen it all, quite literally. You've been through it all. Mashallah, you've been very successful as well with everything that you've done. And then October 7th happens, and then you find yourself in a situation where your parents are stranded in Gaza. What's going through your mind at that moment? What's going on in your heart as well?
I mean, feel like I'm just running away from it all, just really hard. I mean, I'm in a group chat with like, 50 of my cousins in Gaza right at the moment, on WhatsApp. And I try not to read the messages all the time, because, I mean, I have cousins in the north, I have cousins in the Gaza city, I have cousins and uncles in the south and the center. So, I mean, every single bomb get dropped, it could drop like, probably just few yards away from some relative I have. It's not as easy as before. It's like, yeah, I know they're all in Beit Hanun, but it's like all of Gaza is my family, you know. I mean, my parents, went to visit in June, and I was supposed to meet them there in October. I was gonna go on October 15th, and I mean, if the war only started 1 week later, I don't know if he would be talking to me.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how to like, it's just, remembering talking to my parents. They had no water, they had no food, they had nobody. They couldn't walk anywhere. My mom didn't drink for days. My dad is like very sick now. He just found out he had more problem with his kidney, so I don't know if that's have to do with the water he was drinking while he's there. It's just, I have no idea how they survived. I mean, many days I thought they died
Yeah.
or were killed. Maybe it's the right word to use. They got shot. They got, I have videos of like our roof is covered with like bomb shrapnels. We got 3 artillery shells that hit the clinic where my dad was. Our house in Beit Hanun, I don't even know if it still exists. I know last week somebody went there. There's like several bombs have falling on it, but I lost a lot of family. Second cousins. My uncle was killed. In the school. You know, you know, it's just I lost a lot. There's a lot of like my aunts. Both of my aunts lost their husbands. Just heart attack just from the fear of bombs. I mean, my uncle's wife died, just the same thing. So I mean, nobody even, I mean, not only the people like dying with direct sometime. I mean, just I mean, it's a, I don't know, genocide. I mean, just I mean, like my parents' story. I mean, like when I see even like I took a lot of effort. I mean, I guess flying on Mars one thing, but like maybe take credit for getting my parents out. I mean, they didn't. I worked with so many governments. I worked with so many organizations. I mean, there wasn't even a single person. I mean, the head of Red Cross. The head of like that doesn't even know about my parents. I spoke to so many people trying to get them evacuated. I mean, my parents are German citizen. I mean, the German government left them completely neglected. They refused to help us at all. I mean, the German government blackmailed me. They asked me to close my social media accounts for them in order to help me with my parents. I mean, sometimes I feel like the artillery shell actually were hitting my parents just because of me. Was speaking out on social media. It happened at the same timing. I mean, I have text messages literally from a correspondent between me and the German ambassador, like told me like, close your social media accounts.
That's
So they just put their names on Rafah. That doesn't even make them get to Rafah.
Yeah.
I mean, I was in Turkey for 3 months. Spoke with Prime Minister in the UAE, Jordan. Spoke the intelligence in Egypt. I mean, see if somebody could help. Give them an ambulance, but no ambulance entered Gaza City. Most of the Gaza City got evacuated, but my parents couldn't leave. They were trapped alone. With 5 other people in the neighborhood. I mean, a lot of people we don't know. I mean, we couldn't talk to them for weeks. Just and I mean, and I kept at the time I was like I kept working and doing my job. And I was working remote, working in Turkey, and at the same time I was like giving a lot of talks, to motivate students. It's just difficult, But I don't know. I mean, people helped me from the Turkish government. I think they were the most helpful. I mean, I was talking with the head of the Turkish intelligence. I was giving a talk by car, and I met with Erdogan's son-in-law, and he offered to help. I mean, even before that, I mean, many, the Turkish foreign minister Hakan Fidan tried to help, but it's like everybody's so powerless. It's just I had talked to so many people, like people like top maybe second, 2, 3 per person, like in NATO. I was like with him on the phone every day. He's trying to help, trying to put pressure against the German government. I mean, I was on the BBC like 6, 7 times, and the BBC was literally calling the German Foreign Office. I mean, I was talking to people in the Irish Parliament. I mean, the Irish Parliament literally spoke about my parents. Just and it's just. I mean, it's really. I mean, I could talk about it for hours. The things I have to go through. And then we like finally like somehow Turkey made a deal to get ambulance into Gaza City to get my parents out, and then the Israeli shot the ambulance. They killed the ambulance driver, and injured the second ambulance driver. I mean, just the paramedics. While my parents in it, and I mean, the story my mom say, it's like they thought this it. I mean, I had to talk to, at that time, I was like, I couldn't even trust the Turkish government. I was like, did you really talk to Israel, or are you guys just saying stuff? I mean, I wasn't really sure what exactly happened, and I had to I actually got some American friends who actually ex-DoD guys, or like started coordinating with the Israelis. I mean, it was a nightmare, I mean, I have no idea how they got out, I mean, it's probably the only ambulance that actually entered Gaza City in the last 6 months. It's like the one actually evacuated my parents.
Was your dad injured at all? I know he had an illness and a heart condition, I believe, but was he hit with anything or struck in any way?
No, I mean, no, I mean, he just, I mean, like, he got a stroke. I mean, probably a stroke. I mean, he wasn't really diagnosed. I mean, and he was like him and my mom, was screaming and crying for like 2 days trying to find help. But there's nobody to help. I mean, people dying. I mean, in the street, you could see people like bleeding to death, and nobody can help them. So You know, so who's gonna care about a 76-year-old man? You know, I mean, there's so many people dying there. You know, and but you know, I mean, he actually miraculously got better. You know, I mean, he was even better than before the war. You know, when he got out. You know, but you know, I mean, he does have heart condition. My dad had a bad black back surgery the year before in Germany, so he cannot really walk that much. And but I mean, yeah, they like the clinic got hit while they're in it. I mean, but they didn't really. Luckily, they didn't get injured. I mean, if they were sleeping in the wrong room, they probably would have. You know, um, I mean, they could have died of starvation. I mean, my mom lost probably about 30 pounds. You know, I mean, she wasn't eating at all. I mean, she still doesn't eat. You know, she's like almost on a new diet. She eats one meal every 2 days now. But you know, just yeah, I mean, it's just extremely difficult. You know, I mean, and a lot of time we didn't even know any of this. You know, it's like we just didn't even know. And then like my cousin called me. He's like, "Oh, there was a bombing on your dad's outside the clinic. You know, you should call them." And then we tried to call them for 2 weeks, and we don't even know if they're alive. You know, it's just.
You know, there are no words for really to explain the emotion of any of this. And if you were here, brother, I give you a big hug. I mean, I honestly, there are no words. That's all I can say. Nothing compares to the experience of what's for the people who are living there. But I can't imagine the pain you were going through mentally and emotionally, not knowing what was going to happen. I just don't know how you even got through it. I don't think I could have, just to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. My brother couldn't. I mean, my brother gave up hope. He's like, I don't think you can do anything. But I don't know. I mean, I kept working. I mean, I was literally working and just giving talks. You know, like, and people are like, "Oh, we heard about your parents. You know, what can we do to help?" So a lot of people, like in Turkey at the time, were trying to offer help. You know, like so many people. You know, just like call whoever they know. But I mean, I'm really grateful for like President Erdogan. And also like my American friends. Without disclosing their name. Actually, the guy who helped me actually is Jewish, so he also helped with the coordination. But so um, yeah, I mean, so many people helped. There are many people. I mean, I probably like it doesn't give justice to give, but most of the help actually came out of the Turkish intelligence. They made some deal, but but I had to do the coordination myself, because they could not guarantee the safety of the ambulance, so I had to like involve the Germans, involve the Americans to keep a track record, because I couldn't guarantee that my parents would survive that journey, it should be, it's like 15 miles, 15, 20 miles, ambulance moving, and you could not guarantee it will be safe. I mean, that's the reality in Gaza, just an ambulance that has been coordinated by, by the president of one country to a president of another country gets shot at. That's the level of respect the Israeli military have for any. I mean, if this is the level of, respect they have for literally a president of their own nation, or like in another nation, what do you think they respect out of a regular human civilian in Gaza?
Yeah.
It's exposed to me. Like a lot of the people who try to help me, they're exposed to them, not to me. And that's why it's like I spoke to so many people. I just wanted them to feel how useless and powerless they are. Just everybody's just like not even the king of Jordan. Nobody's like, they have absolutely no power. They just all are employees.
Is it they don't have the power, or is it that they don't care, or is it both?
Oh no, man! I'm telling you, even the people who cared, because some people maybe wanted to help me. They just had no power. I mean, I actually emailed Matthew Miller, spokesman of the White House, and he's like, I'm going to send a note to the embassy. And people in the State Department were trying to help. They could not do anything.
Well,
They're just like powerless. It's like all what I asked for is like, I just need a permission for an ambulance to get in to get my parents out. They're foreign national who who are actually in Gaza. And actually, I had this Israeli reporter who's trying to coordinate to help out. Ask if they can get something, and try to work with the Red Crescent. So I had to on the phone the Red Crescent, the Red Cross. I talked to the head of the Red Cross. we had Germany, like when we after so much pressure, we had Germany apply to the HQ of Red Cross in Geneva, going to the UN requesting a request to get an ambulance, but nobody could do anything. I don't know what Turkey exactly did. They did some kind of exchange, in exchange for the ambulance. I don't know, they shipped something they were like holding or something like that. I don't know exactly what happened, but it was part of a deal, that Israel wanted something from Turkey that they exchanged.
So
That's what my belief. I don't know. I don't know what it was, how they did it, but it happened.
yeah, so that's interesting. The German government tried to basically blackmail you, and then Turkey, who has no affiliation with your parents whatsoever, your parents don't live in Turkey, obviously, stepped up to the plate to
No.
help. Yeah.
Yeah, they want to help me. My brother is, he just wasn't a national, a Turkish citizen. So, initially we were trying to go through the Turkish regular routes, but they just tried to help me. It was like a personal favor more than anything.
Yeah. And can you describe that experience when you were reunited with your parents and when they got out and that whole process?
Yeah, so I was in Istanbul, and talking about some really funny story because I was like thinking about going meeting them in Egypt, and so the day before, when I was like after the ambulance got shot, I was like, I told the Germans that my parents is about to get out, so now the Germans showed up actually in Cairo and they wanted to kidnap my parents. I'm sorry I used that word, but
Oh.
like they all of a sudden was like, oh, these are German citizens. It actually caused almost some problem between Germany and Turkey. And I was like, so I had this whole argument with actually the German counselor, and I was like, listen, Turkey did all the work. I am in Istanbul. My brother work here in Istanbul. We haven't seen our parents, so we want my parents to come here. So, so like we had them. The Turkish government actually flew. They did everything. They like took my parents from Rafah in the embassy car to Cairo and flew them, in Turkish airline, and we literally waited for them at the VIP terminal in Istanbul. And so actually, we met. Actually, we ended up running into the Palestinian ambassador there. I was like, "What are you guys doing in the VIP terminal?" And I was like, "Oh, my parents coming from Gaza." So we were there actually with the ambassador. He wasn't supposed to be there, but actually he was going somewhere. So we just sat there, and we actually, we were like some people from the Turkish intelligence. Like actually, they actually escorted my parents from the plane to us, and then we just there, and I mean, I don't know, you've probably seen the video, but it just was. It was just. I don't know. I just couldn't. I didn't know if I should cry or should just be happy. Just to see them. They looked. 10, 15 years older. We had the paramedic check them, and luckily my dad seemed really fine. Like when they checked him. They was like, surprisingly, he's in really strong health now. So they don't even believe his previous record. It's like, it's like a miracle. Like I swear, it's like a miracle. Just for them to survive and actually, seeing so many people die from the level of stress, like no water, no food, just and I stayed there in Turkey with them for like 3 weeks, and then I had to get back to the US for my work for work because I was like working remote for like about 2.5 months, 3 months.
And how are your parents today? Their health overall?
They are okay. They are alive. I don't know what to say, but my dad is some days is really weak. It's probably took a lot of big toll on him, on his health. He was already weak before. He have enlarged heart valve and blood pressure and arrhythmia. So, but he's okay. Some days he gets really weak. So, sometimes like I'm really worried about him. My mom too. Just I don't know. Honestly, I'm grateful they're alive. I'm grateful I got to see them. It's just it's really difficult. I don't know what to say. I actually want to go spend some time with them. But yeah, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know at this point. I wanted to bring them to the US, but my dad's health is not that strong enough to be on the plane for that long. So, can only pray.
Yeah, Absolutely. So where do we go from here now? I mean, you've seen it all. You've been through it all. Obviously, the genocide is ongoing. Where do you go from here? Where do I go from here? Us sort of in the diaspora, where we're relatively safe, obviously. What do we do at this point?
Honestly, I don't know. I mean, it's like I feel like I'm an endangered species. I mean, I get, I don't know. It's like even I don't even know what I can do. It's like I can't even speak on social media anymore. It's like the old shadow banned. It's like
Well,
you know,
I think the shadow banning,
I,
I think just to be clear, I think it was my fault because I commented on one of your
I
Elon posts with Netanyahu, I believe, holding him in a leash as a dog or something to that effect. And so that was my bad. That's on me.
yeah.
Sorry.
No, I don't know if that's what it, but honestly, I don't know. I mean, I think we would never give up. I mean, you cannot kill someone who doesn't die. So we don't die. We're not going anywhere. We are there. And we will go back. One day I will live in Jaffa. Even though I want to live in Gaza, but no. I'm already building. My house, a virtual house in Jaffa. So we'll be back. We will be.
Yeah.
I see it. Yeah, I see it. It's a lot sooner than a lot of people think. I see the whole Middle East changing. You know, and Palestine will be the center of commerce and economy, like just like it always was. You know, so
Well, you got
yeah,
the helicopter on Mars. I believe you on this one as well. I do believe uh, Palestine will be free very soon too. So,
yeah.
have you given any thought to? And I know you do a lot of speaking engagements and a lot of things like that. But have you thought about getting into politics at all within the U.S.?
What kind of who's politics in the U.S.? Uh, I don't know. To I don't know. Maybe I don't know. We'll see what happened next. I mean, I don't know. I don't really believe in politics, honestly. I believe in science. Uh, I actually have my own theory on political governments. I mean, I believe in a modern version of Plato's philosophical republic. I mean, I call it my techno republic. I believe all positions should be run by merits, not by opinions. But I don't know if that government ever happened. But you know, I think people should be in position. People should be in political position. Should be people with qualified backgrounds. I mean, not just based on opinions and based on just popularity. I mean, people should be qualified. A ministry or secretary of health should be run by a doctor. I mean, it should not be run by a member of a political party who does not understand nothing about hospitals. I mean, that's what I really believe in politically. So, and I think a lot of these government branches could be actually run by merits. Should not be run by politics. But so asking me about being a politician.
Maybe in Palestine one day, though.
So
Maybe in Palestine. You never know.
yeah, sure. I mean, Palestine actually did have technocratic governments. People of merits. Running a position when we had political problems. So that was the solution to the division between uh, Hamas and Fatah. It's like they actually bought a technocratic government. I actually, I think more government should be more technocratic. I think it's a very smart way of forming governments.
Yeah. So just a few more questions. What's next for you career-wise? What's the next thing that everybody who's sort of watching you or was watching you on social media, for example, what's the next big thing for you? What should we be ready for?
I'm actually working on my own startup, so yeah, I mean, do my own company, technology company, uh, doing robotics and AI, launching my own. Maybe one day I will launch my own rocket to the moon. So, you know, yeah, I'm working actually right now, like forming a multinational company, with several different countries and based in different countries that bring in robotics, or like democratizing like technology to like the whole world, to improve, life on Earth, for everybody, not just for like a special country or a special group of people.
Again, I believe you. You have a great track record of doing that. Um, what advice, or yeah, I guess it is advice for younger Palestinians all around the world, including in Gaza, including the West Bank and the diaspora? What's your message to them? Words of inspiration, maybe, for them.
You know, one thing my brother said when I was trying to get my parents out, he said, I could never see what we were trying to do while I was like working on getting my parents out. But I could say one thing: it's like always have a positive mindset, have a plan, and have a vision. You will always succeed. No matter what you're trying to do, never give up. Don't let the negative thought put you down to think just because you're Palestinian or you're from Gaza. Even be scared to say who you are, because a lot of people actually, you know, I mean, maybe they're proud inside, but they're not like out. I mean, I think people need to come out more. People need to speak out. I mean, yeah, we might get a backlash, but we will win in the end. I mean, you will win. Everybody will win. Everybody will get what they want. I mean, the kids, that want to, have a dream, they need to like believe in it. You know, opportunity sometimes presents itself only after you seek it. You might not be clear to see it in front of you, but you just like playing chess. Like I mean, that's why you just do things. You just play chess, but your goal in the end is to win the chess game. So like you moving pieces, and sometimes you don't see what's gonna happen, but you do the best, right? You can. You could see like 2 3 moves forward. And but I mean that's how life is. This is I never. With my parents, I never gave up. It's like nobody saw the relationship of me just speaking. You know, I use my parents' story. Honestly, wasn't my goal wasn't only to save my parents. My goal was actually to stop the war, calling for a ceasefire. But I use my parents' story to relate people to a personal story, because to me it's like I think people need to relate. I think as a Palestinian, I think there is a big problem actually with Palestine. A lot of time we're so emotional, we are so numbed by by part of the story, that we focus on the numbers, we focus on the political statements, than the human story. But like every person have a human story. The world need to hear our human story. The people need to know. Like you cannot imagine how powerful it is. You hear all this what's his name, Shapiro, whatever his name, that guy is. Like talking like, "What? Taking me one example of somebody of Gaza like did something." You know what I mean? It's like, I mean, that's why they suppress my story. That's why they suppress a lot of these other similar stories, right? It's because they know how powerful they are. Because people can relate. People can relate to a human story. People do not relate to a number. Like, what is Palestine? What does Palestinian mean? What does 422 mean to some American guy or some German guy? Nothing.
Yeah.
But when I was saying like my parents, like what if as I say Israel banned medicine? Doesn't mean anything, because you cannot relate. When I said my dad does not have access to his heart medication. See, like the way you phrase the sentence is different. But it's the same exact fact, but I'm relating it to one person. I'm not talking about my dad. I'm talking about, if my dad cannot get medicine, nobody else can.
Yeah.
Like my parents got shot at their ambulance, right? That's the reality. That's an ambulance that is going like coordinated by multinational intelligent organization that have no respect, and getting the driver get killed. That's the reality in Gaza. So and people need to speak out from that perspective. People need to speak out about their own thing. Just like by saying I'm Palestinian. I think that's by itself is powerful. I cannot deny who I am. I cannot be somebody else. Did I choose to be Palestinian? No. I just I got, I mean, just like, saying earlier, it's like, I mean, the fact that, I mean, how beautiful it was to live in Gaza. I mean, and how beautiful it will be back to live in Gaza. I mean, yes, it is difficult at the moment, but I mean, people relate. The thing is, and I have to say, it's like, it's like it's a human psychology. There's so much programming psychologically, from our enemy. It's like that. Like the vision. Like I was in somebody's house. I was like, and I'm like literally like in a rural area in Colombia, and it's extremely poor. So I was like talking to this one English guy, and he's like, and I was like, man, it's pretty messed up here. And I was like, oh, didn't you grow up in Gaza? And I was like, no, man, we had better streets in Gaza. It's like, and I was like, the thing is that people imagine sometimes, like they think like Palestine, they read this bullshit Tom Sawyer, story, novel, which is literally brainwashing for a generation to come. And everybody's like, oh, Tom Sawyer, such a great writer. And it's like, it's a complete like white, like, like demonizing, like, for, like people, like, the future generation is like, oh, like this image of like people living with camels, in Palestine, and I was like, and people ask me, like, have you ever been? So it must be fun, like riding camel. I was like, man, I only rode a camel once when I went to the pyramid as a tourist. Like, I mean, I remember, like, I don't even think there's like 40 camel in Gaza owned by some Bedouin guy. I mean, what do you mean? We lived in a house. My grandfather's house is 400 years old, in the city, It's like, I mean, make me tear, like, because, we had to like tear it down to build my dad's clinic on it. But I mean, this is how old the house is. It's older than your country. You know what I mean? It's like my grandfather's house is older than your country. And when we tore it down, we could see bombs from World War I in it. Like they like tore one part of the wall, and the shell is still stuck in the wall, and they just covered it up, Yeah. I mean, that's how much history in a house that my mom born in, I mean, it's just, I mean, I think a lot of time people cannot relate, I mean, they don't understand the culture. I mean, we come from a place that, we lived in cities that are 12,000 years old, I mean, we speak a language, we can read a book. It's like, you can read a book from 1500 years ago and you still understand it, I mean, it's the level of like, I mean, there's so many things that the world does not know about us. So it's like, I think people need to speak out. And that's, I mean, and the more pride you have, the more respect you will get. I mean, people respect the strong, people respect the one who's proud. So be strong, believe in yourself.
You are definitely strong and you are definitely proud. I have to ask you, where did you get the shirt and where can I get that shirt that you're wearing? It is amazing.
I don't know. So a friend of mine bought me this shirt from Jordan and sent it to me in the mail. I don't know if she had a special made or actually, like this. So they sell it in a shop, but it came from Amman. So, but I don't know. Honestly, I don't
Can you just describe it?
I want to buy more of it because. So this is the Palestinian astronaut, So but so I mean, I don't know. I want another one. I kind of want to just like wear this shirt all the time. So I want to buy 10 more of it. But so, if I ever go to Amman, I'll get you one, But I might make one with my own signature. So
Yeah, I was gonna
because
say.
actually I am planning to become an astronaut, so I am in the program. So
There you go. Yeah, no.
when I go to the moon, everybody will.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever time zone you're living in, it's time for Sumud. All about humanity, so this right here for everyone. Uplift, amplify, empower everyone. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever time zone you're living in, it's time for Sumud. Listen, stay tuned, cause it's time for Sumud.